Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This season, we're talking about consulting advice, and I am sure you have heard the advice, you should niche. You should get a niche for your business. And you may have heard it pronounced niche. I like to say niche because I'm American and it rhymes with rich. Two reasons. So today I wanted to talk to you about what does it even mean? What are the terms when we're talking about niching your business? What are some risks and other things that you can consider? And then I'm going to give you some ideas for how you can either niche your business more or niche it less, but more effectively as we go today. Okay. So I wanted to start with an example, two really cool examples that always stay in my head of how somebody began with a very narrow niche and then grew to kind of own a whole part of an industry. The first one is Martha Stewart. She began as a caterer in Connecticut, and then she gradually expanded her business to having cooking shows and cookbooks, and then into talking about entertaining in general and having items that she sold, partnerships with retailers, selling stuff, all the way up to having a whole publishing empire with TV shows and magazines and all kinds of things like that. So she began small and she grew to Martha Stewart Omnimedia. Somebody else who did a very similar trajectory is Oprah. So Oprah began as a local news anchor, and then suddenly she was expanding that into having her own talk show, and then that expanded into having a whole channel, and then now she has, again, what I would call something like an Omnimedia, which is like a publishing company and all these networks and channels and things like that. So I love for us to keep in mind the idea that you can start with a very specific something, and then you can expand it as you go and grow into a whole huge thing. Niches tend to go in either that direction or the opposite direction. People either tend to start very niched and specialized in something, like you come out of corporate and human resources and you do human resources for just that kind of company that you used to work with. So that makes sense. It seems logical. That's a very easy leap. Also, another way you can start is either going from that narrow niche all the way up to a huge thing, or in some cases, people begin with as generalists, and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be a consultant to maybe that kind of company that they came out of. I'm just going to be a consultant and see what happens, what kind of work I do. And they try out all kinds of stuff. And then maybe over time, they narrow down the focus of what they're working on. So that's basically what I did, which is I came out of marketing for a global multinational. I spent a little time working with other multinationals and then other small businesses, and gradually over time I got smaller and smaller and focused on who I want to work with, and that is consultants. But I'm going to clarify that trajectory with a few new terms. So to me, we have a Venn diagram, which is basically when two circles are overlapping, right? So the first circle is all of the functional areas of what we do and what we could do for our clients. So they kind of equate to the job functions in an organization. So operations, finance, sales, marketing, production, human resources, all of those kinds of things. All of those are functional areas. And if you're in something like fitness or health or wellness, mental health, those things are all functional areas of the kind of the work that you do. To me, a specialty is when you select one of those that you're going to focus on. So within human resources, for example, you have leadership development, training, compliance, or marketing. And within marketing, you can have copywriting or advertising, PR. These are all subspecialties of marketing. Online marketing, sponsorships, affiliations, and things like that. So those are all specialties that kind of live over here. There's a generalist would be someone who basically does many of those functions, or all of them, just comes in and says, I do, all of these functions for a specific audience. And that's our second circle. So your second circle is the who we do this for. So it's the target audience. And this is going to be all of the possible industries or target audiences you could work with. So it's everyone from global multinationals to small businesses to parents, right? So B2C, teens, that's who Coca-Cola is selling to. Nonprofit organizations, government entities, cities and municipalities. So target audiences can be really, really broad. The opportunity in a niche, to me, it's where those two things overlap. A niche isn't just who I work for. It's having a specialty for a specific subset of a target audience, right? So for example, when I was saying that I left Coke and I started out doing marketing for global multinationals, because it's exactly what I had been doing before, then I began to kind of narrow down. And I've narrowed it down to consultants, so a very specific target audience within small business. However, as I've continued my work, I've gone from just specifically focusing on marketing to doing marketing, sales. I do a lot of team kinds of ideas and things like that. So it's kind of a human resources element to what I'm doing. Operations, like how your business functions. So I've become more of a generalist in that sense, as I have become more of a specialist in who I'm working with. So that's kind of a niche you can hear is I'm a generalist in business growth, basically, broadly, for a very specific audience. So what I want you to do is think about for you what these are. What's your niche? Do you have you are a what kind of person, what kind of an expert for what kind of an audience? So when people advise you to niche in your business, they say that because they think it's going to make the marketing easier. It'll be clearer for your target audience who you are and that you are for them. And that's mostly true, but there are a few risks with niches in your business. And the first one is making your niche too narrow. So there's a point at which who you're looking to work with gets so narrow that there's only 125 people left in that niche, and it's going to be too hard for you to get business. And you'll know that if you feel like the marketing is too difficult and there just aren't enough of what you're looking for. The second thing is niching too soon. So you can hear that if when I had just started out, I had decided this is what I'm going to do forever, and I never changed my niche, that I'd be pretty unhappy because I'd be doing marketing, which I do get tired of from time to time, for global multinationals for whom I found it very ungratifying to work. So I want you to remember that you can be flexible and you can change your niche as you go, because you don't want to be stuck working for someone that you don't want to work for as a target audience, and you don't want to be stuck doing work that you feel like you've outgrown or grown beyond. And the third risk is that you leave money on the table. So if you're niching your business and you're constantly coming in contact with people that you could help, but you feel like, but I made a niche and that's not really who I am, then you might be missing out on opportunities. Now, I have a colleague who believes that there's no opportunity that should ever be missed out on. He wants all the work. So if it's like, hey, we need help with finance, he's like, I can do it. They're like, hey, we need help with human resources. He's like, I can do it. So he believes he can do everything. He's been in business for a really long time. He's a very high-level expert consultant, so maybe he's right. A lot of us would feel, I'd say, uncomfortable taking every possible opportunity. But I do want you to remember you're probably qualified to do more things than you feel like you are, especially if you're a woman. So go ahead and maybe try out working in for a slightly different audience in a slightly different area on something that you maybe have done something similar to, but not exactly. Don't be bound by your niche or who you think you are and what you think you do. Feel free to experiment. One of the things that this brings up is there was a book that came out last year called Range, and I want to get the subtitle right because it's really kind of tells you the secret of what's inside the book. Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. So his premise is basically that we try to focus people too soon. So you got kids in kindergarten saying what they want to be, what they want their major to be in college. And he feels like that cuts off a lot of exploration and experience that we could collect in our lives. And he really feels like the more kind of curious and open-minded you stay for longer, the better an innovator you're going to be able to be and the more kind of excellence you're going to bring. So I think that's really true. When I was at corporate, what I thought was a really good trend, this was when all of the strength stuff started happening, and we were beginning to question whether you should shore up your weaknesses or focus on strengths. So I met a lot of people at corporate who were like, and one of them was my mentor in my department, who had come out of finance, but he wanted to transition into marketing because he wanted to kind of broaden his skill set, which I thought was a great idea. Not everybody wants to spend time doing something that they're not yet good at, especially when they're really great at something else. So I would encourage you, especially as a consultant, the more you kind of work on projects that maybe aren't right in your wheelhouse, the more you're going to have experiences that you can use in the future with your clients. So I think niching too soon and maybe turning down work that might not be exactly the center of what you do can be risky, and it can prevent you from growing in ways that will help you later in your career. And that kind of transitions me over. The idea of leaving money on the table. There's a big difference between getting clients online and getting clients offline in your local area. And that big difference is usually that when you meet somebody and they say, I will have this problem, and you say, oh, I could help you with that. They're like, okay. And they hire you. They don't usually shop around because, like, why would they? So in my personal experience, like, I'm the consultant they know. They don't know other consultants. And they don't think, like, I'm going to get like 3 more bids from 3 potential people who could do this, because there just aren't that. There wasn't that where I lived. You might live in the place where there's 10 million of you. But in most cases, when you meet somebody in a networking situation or you get a referral to someone, you don't like go read their Amazon reviews. You feel like, I have a feeling about you and I trust you and I'm going to hire you. That's how offline marketing is. And so it can help you not to be too narrowly focused. I know all of the online marketing is where we want to have this kind of like, I do copywriting for coaches, or I do team building for pet companies. Like, you're going to have those kind of specialties, which and niches and target audiences, which means niches. That is a very specific niche. But when you're offline, my marketing message for years was, I help small businesses increase revenues. That is not a good message. That is not a specific message. And if somebody came to me nowadays with that, I would say, you probably need to, like, I don't know, get a little specific. Like, what kind of small businesses and what does it really mean to grow revenues, and like what problems do you solve? Like, I didn't even need that. For like 10 years, I got clients with that crappy message. Why? Because they weren't looking at any of my marketing materials. They talked to me. Offline marketing is a lot about people meeting you and saying, oh, I think you can help me. And then they hire you. So offline, I want you to be cautious about using those hyper niched messages. So for example, if you're a copywriter and you meet people in town and they talk about needing more clients, you can say, oh, I help people to get more clients. Maybe they are a restaurant and you haven't done it before, but you feel like I could probably help a restaurant get more customers. Or it's a service business, let's say attorneys or architects. You feel like I could probably help them write better than they're writing right now. So bear in mind that offline and online marketing have very different paradigms when it comes to things like niching. So what I've given you today are some definitions, some risks, and some ideas about how you can niche further down if you feel like it would be to your advantage, or you can niche up, meaning not be so specific in how you're using your message for those different situations. So I want you to bear in mind where you are, what kind of potential work you could be doing, and that you could maybe help more people. If anything is not in your joy and genius zone, then I don't want you to do it. So I'm not saying, listen, if you hate all things human resources, you should do that. No, don't ever do anything that you feel like wouldn't suit you. But you do have the opportunity to claim more expertise than you might feel like you could if you were, let's say, talking about sales in a room full of sales experts. If you feel like, I'm pretty good at sales, I think I could do something in sales, then go ahead and assert that if you meet somebody that you could help, okay? I want you to have confidence in yourself. Confidence is what people purchase. No one's buying a niche. No one's buying a marketing message. No one's buying their website message. People are buying you and your confidence that you can help them. So that's what I want you to think about and invest in. And with that, I am wishing you a profitable and joyful consulting business. Thanks for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get video updates. Thanks.